happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous day, and that you're doing good things. Welcome back to the channel where I talk about things. And I'm not going to talk to you about the usual stuff like trading crypto or marketing or sales or anything like that. I'm going to talk to you about the war and what's happening right now, where I am relative to what is going on. In case you don't know, right now I'm in northern Israel. And it is obviously a war zone in the sense that we have incoming complaint cylinders from our angry, crazy, psychopathic, genocidal murderer neighbors to the north, known as Hezbollah, the terrorists. They're a recognized terrorist organization internationally. And they also, unfortunately, are the major force of arms in Lebanon. So they basically control that country, even though officially Lebanon has a government and its own army. But that army is a joke compared to the size and scope and amount of arms that Hezbollah has, provided to them mainly by Iran. And of course, the Lebanese army, many of its soldiers moonlight in Hezbollah. So after the U.S. spends money training those Lebanese soldiers, many of them go home after work from their day job as soldiers or whatever, toy soldiers, because they're not really doing anything of significance. And they don their Hezbollah clothes, right? And they use that U.S. American training to do their worst. And right now there's rocket fire around me. I can hear it. And we just had sirens earlier today, not long ago. And there are regularly rockets and other forms of complaint cylinders shooting our way from the north. And yes, in case you're wondering, I'm looking around, just having a look in the sky for any strikes and counter strikes happening. Because sometimes you hear something and you feel it, even from far away. Hopefully you've never been in a war zone where you literally feel the acoustic boom. And but yeah, many people unfortunately have been. And now there's a ceasefire that's been proposed since the end of last week. Right, last week the U.S. Special Envoy, Mr. Hawksburg, I think his name was in Beirut. Got the Hezbollah to tentatively agree to a ceasefire with Israel. And that ceasefire would basically mean that the fire would cease, and then Hezbollah would pull back north of the Litani River in stages relatively quickly. And Israel would then withdraw its troops from South Lebanon, which have now, since yesterday or last week or whenever, it was reported yesterday or today that they've reached the Litani River for the first time since 2000, which is when they pulled out of South Lebanon. And the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon is contingent upon the U.S. and France, and maybe some other countries, creating a new group of observers and monitors to make sure that Hezbollah does not yet again violate UN Resolution 1701, which they have never observed since it was signed in 2006. And so the question is, and of course, if that does actually happen, and if Israel does actually pull back out of South Lebanon, and all the other steps have been fulfilled, then Israel has the right to act in case of any further Hezbollah violations So Israel would have the right to act freely within Lebanon, which is something that Hezbollah does not want, but they have tentatively said okay to. You got to remember, this is a ceasefire, not a peace treaty. This would not actually be the end to the war, which means in all likelihood, Hezbollah would just rearm itself, regroup itself, recruit more people, train more, and basically prepare for the next round of fighting and the next round of terror attacks on northern Israel, creating once again another point of friction in the Middle East at some point down the line. So is it a good deal? Well, in the short term, sure. If you live under constant rocket fire and missile attacks and drone attacks, or if you're on the Lebanese side, attacks from the Israeli Air Force, or ground troops, well then yeah, you want this to end right away. Go back to relative quiet. Try to get back some prosperity in our lives. And some years without thinking about rockets constantly. But if you're looking at it from the long-term perspective, no, it's not a good deal. Negotiating with terrorists is never a good idea. And this is exactly why. Right? The 2006 UN resolution was also a ceasefire. And look what it's led to. Hezbollah arming from, they had roughly 30 or 50,000 rockets back then. Now they stocked up to more than 150,000 rockets, allegedly. And yeah, sure, many of them, maybe they've lost the capacity to fire 80% of their inventory, because Israel has blown out a lot of rocket launchers, taken out other assets that they need to fire those things, like people and leaders and all this stuff. But it doesn't mean that Hezbollah is incapable of firing rockets. They're still firing at us every day. There's still sirens going off around here all the time, and in many other parts of the country too. So long term, no, it's not a good deal. Negotiating with terrorists is a bad idea. Sometimes Israel is pressured into doing it, either by its own citizens or by other outside forces. Sometimes it seems like a worthy thing to do. Like when they traded 1,000 Palestinian terrorists who were in Israeli prisons for Gilad Shalit. And of course, the parents of Gilad Shalit were delighted to get him back home, and much of Israel, if not most of Israel, was happy to see him come home after years in captivity in Gaza by Hamas. But one of the people that was released was Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader and mastermind of the October 7th attacks. The Hamas leader in Gaza, that is, the military or terrorist leader, who then became also the political leader a month or two or three before his own death, when the political leader, the former political leader, Ismail Haniyeh, now Wasmail Haniyeh, was eliminated in Iran by somebody. So short term, yes, we all want peace and quiet, at least those of us who are sane and not members of psycho groups like Hezbollah. But long term, no, it's not a very good thing. What would be a good thing is an Israeli victory over the Hezbollah, a complete military defeat of them kinetically, so that they would actually surrender or pack up and leave Lebanon, which is not likely. But ideally, that's what would happen. The problem is that Israel is dealing with an enemy that is bent on ideology, and they take their orders from quote-unquote God, from their perverted version of it. So they're not likely to surrender anytime soon, even if Israel defeats 99.9999% of them. The 0.0001% of them that remain will remain crazy and start to rebuild, at least until they get orders from Iran to stop, which is not likely to happen as long as Iran remains the theocratic dictatorship that it is. So yeah, that's one of the reasons that there's a lot of debate and discussion within Israel about whether or not to do the ceasefire. But I can tell you, short term, people in Israel definitely support the idea. At least many people, not necessarily all, maybe not even half, but a lot of people do. And many people support the idea of we don't quit until we win. And until these guys surrender and cry uncle and quit their genocidal ways. So we'll see what happens. I hope all will be well and that we'll have peace, real peace, lasting peace, sooner rather than later. Okay, that's it for now, folks. Talk to you later. Peace.